Good evening, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the Moving Past You radio show. I'm your host, Juanita Gaynor, and I definitely want to welcome you to tonight's show. And today we will be talking about the art of distraction, decoding Satan's playbook. Now, before we deep dive into that, we're going to just open up in prayer. Father, you have redeemed us from the darkness of this world. Amen. We refuse to allow strife and envy and jealousy and past failures. Oh, Jesus, unforgiveness or doubt to operate in our lives. Hallelujah. Please show us the things that would hinder us in our prayers and to distract us so that we can be productive and positive and live and show your light. We ask you this in His Son's precious and most holy name. Amen. So, hello, everyone. Okay, the enemy really doesn't want this one to go out tonight. Had a great setup. I had everything going. My mic all together, had tested it and everything, and then it was just nothing. My producer was like, hey, we're not hearing you now. You're not picking up no feedback. And I'm just like, oh, okay, we're going to switch mics. That's no problem. We're going to switch mics. Do what we got to do. But see, that lets me know right there. Every time, we talk about him and how to, defeat him, he always comes up with something so that we can't get it out. He always does something that tries to make you back up and say, well, maybe we'll do it some other way. Not today, Satan. Not today. You should have tried that another time, another life, another something, but it won't be today. So we are going to come from Romans, the 12th chapter, the 2nd verse, and we're going to be doing the King James Version. And it says, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Okay? Let me say that again. Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing, the ultimate renewing of our minds. Basically, this is how Satan works. If he can't destroy you, he'll distract you. If he can't convince you to give up, he'll divert your attention. If he can't lead you to moral failure, he'll get your focus misaligned. Distraction is one of the most effective tools that Satan uses. And then we think about life in general. We all have problems. It's filled with problems, but there are some problems that we have that are sent solely and directly from the enemy. We have people in our lives. We're always going to have people within our lives. As Christians, we're in the people business. As believers, we are in the people business. We are called to love and to lead people. But sometimes, most of the times, Satan will send people into our lives to divert attention away from doing God's will. And then we have those pursuits. You know how they say, the pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of love, the various things. What God has planned for us is the best for us. He has an amazing purpose for our lives. How many times have good opportunities knocked on your door, which were actually sent by the enemy in hopes of keeping us from pursuing what is best? So I'm going to tell a quick story just personally. I was married, and my goal was I was, always was in IT. At an early age, I took classes. I was I was the only African-American female, in a class with boys during programming class. And I worked at a great company, and they had an IT department. And I was like, I should, definitely take them up. It was a 2-year program, and then, I would still be in the same company. And my husband at the time was like, oh, I'm not moving, 2 hours away. And I tried to do everything to make it work. I was trying to, do it, trying to get the things, whatever. And it just wasn't what God wanted for me. It was like, yes, that's what you're good at. That is one of your talents, but that is not your gift. And trust me, it would have been great money. But that's what he does. The enemy presents things to us in a manner so that it appears it's from God, but it's not. So let's kind of talk about what his overall premise is. He'll use cyber attacks on your mind, in an effort, to corrupt your thinking. He'll try to convince you that you're no good, that no one will ever love you, that God can't use you, that God really doesn't care. Isn't it, this isn't that big sin or any number of lies to prevent you from trusting God and doing his will. That's one of his great ones. Oh, this isn't one of the big 3 sins, so you can still continue to do this, and, God's still going to just pat you on the back and move you along. That's another one of his deceptive tactics to get you not to do what you're supposed to do. Think about it. He convinced Eve that God was holding out on her. Satan will lie to you about who you are and who God is. Straight to your face, straight no chaser, without thought. And he will lie to you about sin. Oh, that was a little white lie. Oh, well, that wasn't as big as that one. Think about it is that when you needed to do that in order to move forward in this. That's what he does. When you hear his lies, it's critical to turn to God's word and find the truth so that you won't fall prey to his deception. Have you just been completely sometimes just overwhelmed about how difficult it's been to live a life that's pleasing to God? If you sit back and think about it, that in itself sometimes can be overwhelming. That in itself sometimes can just be like, just make you want to just throw up your hands and just be like, I'm done, I'm good. I just don't really want to do this. If the temptations of the world and sin within our own hearts isn't enough, Satan is working triple, double, quadruple overtime to see our destruction, downfall, or to see us in a weakened state. So many of us, he has been hunting us since the day we was conceived in the womb, because he knows that once we get on point and on the path and start doing what God needs and wants us to do, they can't stop us. It's a wrap, it's a done deal. And so therefore, he's not scared about you not fulfilling the promise. He's terrified of you fulfilling the promise. So he's going to do anything and everything to make it hard for you. He rejoices, like literally has a block party, throwing hands up, partying when we have difficult times, when we're struggling, when, things don't seem to be going our way, when we doubt. And then what he does is he sees that opening and he's like, I'm going to put some more stuff into it. Like, you know what? I'm going to make sure that the car completely breaks down, and now she's got to buy another one. You know what? I'm going to make, the boss don't like him anyway, so I'm going to make it where he's going to lose his job today. Because I got to make sure that he doesn't do what God needs him to do or wants him to do. That little snake, and that's what he is. He's a snake. He's a slithering little snake. He's cunning and he's crafty. Now, see, the thing is that he's a little bit more powerful than what we give him credit for. And therefore, being guarded against him, we kind of put our guard down because we really don't believe he can do all that he does. He has experienced in all kinds of evil on his side. Like he's got buddies in deep, dark worlds. He's just like, call him up, be like, hey, I just need some help. And he'll run and help him. And the thing is that he never grows tired. He never gives up. He has a life mission to spew hatred for Christ. He hates them because, they escaped out of his hand. They opposed his kingdom and his government. They hate sin and pant and pray and strive towards holiness. That's why he hates Christ and his bride. Because at the end of the day, he couldn't manipulate the situation. He couldn't control the situation. So he hates them with more than a passion. It's his life mission to destroy anything and everything that's connected with him. So do you really know the evil one's name? Satan, Lucifer, snake, slither, slimy creep. I call him slithery, slimy creep because, you belong beneath my feet and I step on things like that. But do you really understand his game? That's what we're going to talk about. Like the three biggest schemes of Satan is lies, temptation, and manipulation. And it all falls under the lines of distraction. See, when Satan lies to you, he's the father of them. He created them. He opened them up. He had a good bling time. And he's going to attempt to deceive you by twisting the truth or completely changing God's word. So with the sole purpose of confusing you and leading you to sin. Like when I was coming up, I used to see people who would just use a portion of the scripture so that it would benefit what they were trying to do or who they were trying to come against or scold or to reprimand. So they would only use the portion that really talked to what they were trying to do. They would never use it in context. They would never understand. They didn't want to understand really what God was saying. They just wanted to get their agenda across. Temptation. It's not going, and it's not always sexual sin that's, he uses in temptation. It is, tempting you to move from one place to another because you think the grass is greener on the other side, or going to another job because there's more financial gain. And sometimes, a lot of the times, we are where we're at or supposed to be where we're at because God is using us for something greater in the midst. I'm aware of my corporate sponsor, in which I call them. They're my corporate sponsor. But I'm there for a reason and a season. And he is still working on things. He is still doing things and moving it and helping us get to where we need to be. Basically with temptation, he works to set us up, before sinful things that'll tempt us. It's like the shiny object syndrome. Ooh, shiny. And so it's shiny and sparkly, and it looks all crystally and new, and you want to touch. How many times when we were kids, and you'd be on the stove, and your mother say, don't touch that pot because it's hot? And you just had to touch it. You just had to touch it because you really didn't believe it was hot until you burned yourself really, really badly, and you got in trouble, and then you realized it was hot. But at this point, now you have inflicted great pain on yourself, and 9 times out of 10, you're at the hospital, you've caused a great burn, you've taken time, you've spent money, because, I know when I was coming up, you had to really pay when you went to the hospital. So you've done wasted money, Now mom's mad, grandmom's mad, you done ran up a bill because you wanted to be disobedient, because you saw the shiny object of the hot pan and you just had to touch it because it was just calling your name. I used to say it all the time, but it was just calling my name. It was asking me to touch it. And that's really Satan. He's just saying, come on, it's not going to hurt you. Yeah, they said it was hot, but it's really not hot. Yeah, I know he told you to stay right there, but if you go over a few feet and go see what that's going on, you really stand in the same vicinity. You didn't move, you just moved over just a little bit. It's always just a little, a little bit. It's not the whole thing. I want you to move just a little bit so you don't feel that you've done something wrong. While Satan cannot inhabit us and make us sin, he can certainly mess with us and tempt us to sin. He certainly can. He can do a doozy on it. Manipulation. He loves that one. He loves that one, I think, more than just as much as he loves lying. While he's not all powerful, he is very clever and skillful at manipulating situations and people, always to achieve the purpose of provoking us to sin. All of his, all of Satan's, attacks are covert operations. He's subtle. He's slithery. He uses the deception to confuse and to blind us, hoping we will fail to see the harm that lies before us, and be unable to hear and heed God's Spirit, directing us to not go there. Have you ever been in a situation? I know I have, and maybe you haven't, but I know I have been in a situation, and have you ever heard of follow your first mind? And I was real bad at that, because my first mind would tell me no, and I decided I wanted to do it, and I would say yes. And now, months later, hours later, days later, I'm upset, I'm ticked off, I'm mad, because now I didn't even lost some money, some trouble got ensued, now I got more problems, I'm spending additional money that I wasn't planning to, because I decided not to follow my first mind. And what I've learned in this journey is that my first mind is always the right one. Always. Because that's the Holy Spirit talking to us and be like, don't do it. Don't. You don't want that. It's not good for you. It's bad for you. Back away. Back away from the temptation. Back away from the lies. Back away from the person. Back away from the situation. No, you don't need to go to that event tonight. You don't need to go to that party. You don't need to hang out with that person. You don't need to take that job. You don't need to quit your job. He gives us those initial instincts to let us know, to protect us. But sometimes we are so caught up in the covert operation that Satan has spun, because he's a spin doctor. We're so caught up in it that now we're in a position, and now we're looking to God and crying to him to get us out of it, because we were so caught up and we wasn't hearing. And the thing is, we hear. We wasn't listening. We didn't want to hear about it. We was just kept doing what we wanted to do, how we wanted to do, when we wanted to do. Point blank and to the period. And so now we're just like, okay, what we going to do? How we going to move it? Because, see, Satan's overall purpose is to make us walk in flesh and not live in the spirit. He wants us to worship false gods. He wants to turn us away from God's ways to the ways of the world. God, he wants us to turn us from God's will to our own selfish desires. He wants us to make it about us at all times. And that's not what you need to do. He wants us to make it about us at all times. Because if we make it about us, we then feed into what he's doing. He can be like, well, I didn't really touch them, God. I know I wasn't supposed to kill them or anything like that, so I didn't really touch them. I just showed them an alternate way of doing something, and they chose my way. That's how he works. And see, like I said before, all of his schemes in one word is a distraction. And see, we get caught up because we think distraction is a one-dimensional word or concept or thing when it is multifaceted. Multifaceted. He takes tons of things to use for distractions all the time. He doesn't care. He doesn't. Because if you think about it, from the garden to our present day, Satan's way has been to turn our heads, to redirect our eyes, and to divert our attention away from God and to put it on anything else but God. In the garden and with every one of us, he attacks us using the lust of our eyes, the lust of our flesh, and the pride of life. That's what he does. When Satan distracts us with Christianity we become prey for these schemes, his lies, his temptations, his manipulations. But always remember, his three weapons cannot stand against the power we have. For greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. Just as Satan has the big three schemes that cause us to sin, our God tells us the big three to avoid sin and live righteously. And these three are the foundation of our faith. It says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, love the Lord your God with all your soul, and love the Lord your God with all your mind. The foundation of everything is love, which is your heart, which is the fuel of the soul, your emotions and your desires. That's your soul. And the food for our mind, which is our knowledge and wisdom. Jesus is a ministry of apologetics, the mind and knowing, discipleship, the soul and living, and it's dedicated to the glory of God. So knowing, renewing your mind in the Word. Like I said earlier, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Living, anchor your soul in hope. This hope we have as an anchor of the soul, both sure and steadfast. Loving, establish your heart in grace. It is good that the heart be established by grace. Now, don't be distracted. The Apostle James sums it up well when he says, every man is tempted when he is drawn away, distracted of his own lust and enticed. Don't let Satan and his little minions distract you. His little minions do get on my nerves. They are really busy bees, but stay focused on Jesus. Matthew wrote, the light of the body is the eye. It is therefore your eye is single, your whole body shall be full of light. And Proverbs confirm the light of the eyes rejoices the heart. Therefore keep looking unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. Now, trust me, the enemy has been trying to have a field day with me since I was conceived. Like, he has tried everything in his power to take me out, to shut me up, to shut me down, to make life miserable. He has tried it. Trust me, he has tried it. And at the end of the day, he didn't succeed, and he's not understanding how and why he didn't succeed. So I want to share with you some of the things that I have learned over the years that, how the ways that he really tries to seek our destruction. And I just had to write this out because I was thinking about it, and it's just like, this man just will never give up. He is worse than the Energizer Bunny. Because at least with the Energizer Bunny, you can take the batteries out and sit the thing down somewhere. Not him. He never sleeps. He never eats. He never rests. His ultimate goal is to destroy us and to destroy whatever it is that God has for us. Now, let's make this clear. At the end of the day, the number one thing he's going to do, and that he is good at, is planting doubts and lies. One of the biggest doubts that the enemy will plant in our hearts is about the goodness of God. How can good God, how good could God possibly be to let some of the horrible things and hard things happen to you? This is one that I struggled with in my early portion of my healing. This is one that a lot of believers struggle with because they feel that, if God is so good and he's so loving and he's so kind, why do I have to struggle? Why are these things going on? And I'll give a couple of insights on what I've learned through my journey. One, and I put this as number one for a reason. A lot of the things that we sometimes go through has nothing to do with God. It is a lot of the times the consequences for the things that we've done that has finally caught up to us. You can't blame him for everything that goes wrong. Our actions have consequences. I'm going to say that again. Our actions have consequences. Sometimes those consequences are severe. Sometimes they are light. Sometimes they happen immediately. Sometimes they can happen 20 years later. But every action has a reaction. So many of the times, the things that we're going through, the hard times that we're going through, are self-inflicted, mainly because of disobedience and selfishness, because we've decided that we're going to do what we want to do, how we want to do it, when we want to do it, and we don't care who we hurt in the process. And maybe you may not have been down that situation, but I know I have. So God is not the reason why things happen. There's going to always be evil in this world, and sometimes the people that do things to others, they don't care if that person, is a Christian or not. They don't care if that person loves God. If someone has evil in their heart and have an evil intent, they don't care who their victim is. And see, this is when you should be upset with the enemy, because he's planted that seed. That is his job. And so we get mad at things and other people and things, and when it's really Satan himself doing a lot of things. And sometimes, in speaking with other ministers and other people who walk, he was like, sometimes God has allowed things to happen and go through whatever so that they could best know how to minister and walk and do with the spiritual walk of those in which they lead. So 90% 99.9% of the time, I'm going to say, and this is my opinion, someone may definitely disagree. The reason why we go through a lot of the hardships we go through is because we are disobedient and selfish, and we want to do things our way. Now, I have a caveat for you. Just because we are disobedient and selfish doesn't mean that God doesn't love us any less. He still loves us. He still wants to use us. He still is, wants us to come into the fold, but we have to let him in. He hasn't written you off. You may have written God off, but he hasn't written you off. So just because you've gone down a path that doesn't, seem conducive, or you put yourself in a situation, doesn't mean that God has written you off. Now, man will write you off, but God doesn't. The second thing that I learned that, the enemy does is he will fight against your faith. Now, let me explain something beyond anything else. If there's one thing you cannot say about Satan, he ain't lazy. He's not lazy at all. Man, he's active. He's more active than a 2-year-old toddler who you trying to catch who's going to put something in their mouth. He active. He ain't lazy. He moving. And he's roaming around to seeking who he can destroy. His arsenal of crazy tactics are full. Just like ladies, and I'm speaking to the ladies right now, just like most of us have a thing of shoes or makeup, guys who's into the shoes, maybe it's tennis shoes, maybe some hats, just like you think you have a full arsenal, cooks, just like you think you have a stock kitchen, the enemy has a stock full arsenal of tactics and will not hesitate for one thought, iota, anything to use them against you, to maim our faith. So don't just think, because we're a child of God, that he's not going to do whatever. I mean, come on, he was trying to tempt Jesus. He was trying to tempt the one. I'll give you all this. This is mine. How can you give me something that's mine? He was that bold. So if he was that bold to try to tempt Jesus, what do you think he's going to do to us? This is what we got to recognize. We have to be prepared for him to come at us in any way, shape, and possible. If we can't imagine it, he can. If it is so far-fetched that you wouldn't even think it was possible, he's even thought about it and he's planning up a way to try to execute it. That's how he works. Now, 2, the third one I realized, he will tempt you with sexual immorality. Now, when I say this, for me, it didn't happen for me after being abused as a child. I was just I was good and done with it. But I see how he does that. What he'll do is, most people don't think when children are abused or there was a rape or something that was violent, it's something that spirit is entered in. And you can go several different ways. And I can see how you can go those ways. You can be really promiscuous. You can just not want to have anything to do with it. And it can happen. But he uses that so that we begin to continue with soul ties, because every time we connect with someone, you're connecting with that spirit. And then you have so many different levels of it. You can magazines, online, and things like that. And it's just he wants nothing more than to ruin your purity and ruin marriages and ruin relationships. Because when you're united as one, he can't come, against that. So his goal is always to, divide and conquer. The fourth one is perfectly key. And I've witnessed it all of my life, and I'm witnessing it now just in even connections that we're doing, is that he will cause, not only will he try to cause, he will be successful at times in causing disunity amongst believers. It can be the smallest conflict that will arise. And it will be like, you'll be wondering, like, why are we arguing about this? Or why are they mad at what's going on? Because he's skilled at using such things to erode fellowship and breed discontent. So that little smallest thing, I'll give an example. Sister Mary is known to be the pie lady. Like, everybody loves Sister Mary's pies. But then you got a new kid on the block, Sister Jolene. And Sister Jolene can make a mean pie too. And then everyone starts talking about Sister Jolene's pies, and this is what the enemy does to Miss Mary. See, they done went ahead and replaced you. They didn't appreciate what you did and how you was working and the things that you were doing. Isn't that sad? So now Miss Mary got an attitude, and now she don't want to talk to Sister Jolene, and she don't want to talk with anyone who associates with her, not realizing that together they could take the pie world by storm. But that is how he works. Just the smallest thing that you would think nothing of, or not even what word, how he actually does that, he'll do that. Just so that y'all are fighting over something like pies and who sews the best and, who, marches the best. And those who listen, I remember those little usher board, the usher board number 2, how they would come in on anniversary and, they would march, and then, afterwards there'll be a fight. Well, you went 2 steps instead of 3. Really? But that's what the enemy does, that he uses that to cause confusion. So therefore you can't get anything done because you're arguing about something that has no worth, no value, and makes no sense to argue about. This is his good one. He will slander you before God. Oh, you don't think he has an audience with God? He goes to him all the time. Because he's looking for them, he'll go to God and like, you know what, they're not going to stay with you. They're going to do whatever they can and however they can to do whatever. Like, over and over and over again, he will throw all your sins before the throne of God in an effort to discredit you. While he will not succeed, he is never going to give up trying. He will go before people like, well, she had that fight back when she was in the 3rd grade and she got expelled from school, or he cut that boy when he was a teenager, or they were up in juvie, or they did shoplifting. That's what he's gonna do, and God's gonna look at him and be like, be gone. He just sits there and looks at him and listens, like, okay, you rusty board today. Yeah, it's not gonna work. Keep it pushing. And number 6, what I learned. I know many of us have heard the term pride before the fall. Basically, he will try to take you down through your pride. Pride is a very dangerous sin because it gives birth, and it is the portal to almost every other sin. So Satan will spend all of his time trying to convince you of the fact that you are the king, that it's okay to be selfish to the point of being ridiculous, that it's going to always be about you and no one else, that you should be able to go in and just, cut throat, try to climb to the, top of the corporate ladder, that no one else should matter. Your family shouldn't matter. Your friends shouldn't matter. Nothing about the love of the money and the almighty dollar and you satisfying the lusty, selfish, worldly views that you have encompassed, because that's what he's showing you. That's what he does. Because, see, when you operate in pride, Nobody can tell you nothing. You can't be corrected. You don't feel like you are the biggest and the baddest thing since sliced bread. You begin to do things to hurt people and to undercut people. Some people are so prideful that they steal from their own mama. And I'm not just saying that to be mean. I know that from personal experience and the people I know. And it's sad. But pride can destroy you so quick because it opens you up to so many things and so many demons and so many immoralities. Because with pride, you can't see anything else. It's just all about you. And that is why Satan spends his time on it. Because he knows it is one of his mighty arsenals to effectively use. Also, he will persecute you for your faith. Now, if you think, and we don't see too much of it here in the United States, but in other countries, in third world countries where they wholeheartedly believe in God, where they still see miracles happening every day, they're being tortured and murdered. And you know what? That gives Satan such joy. But how we're over here in the U.S., how we're persecuted, how we are, shamed, is much milder. They'll shun us. We'll get discrimination, slander, injustice, unkind. That's how, we're persecuted here. Someone will say things like, oh, she's that religious nut. Oh, that's that Bible thumper. Girl, I can't believe you hang with them. That's what he'll do. He'll cripple your faith through fear. I'm going to say that again. He will cripple your faith through fear. There was a good portion of my life where everything that I ever thought, did, moved, breathed was crippled by fear. There was times where I didn't think I could come out or know I could come out or was so fearful of what God had for me that it was just like I was willing to stay in the midst of drama, craziness, confusion, and heartbreak out of fear. The only fear we should have is fear of the Lord. But what Satan does is he tempts us to fear earthly things. It's this kind of fear, it blinds us to the power and goodness and sovereignty of God. It's a type of fear when the child has been abused or the husband or the wife has been abused. And yes, men and women can be abused in a domestic situation. For both. When you've been told all of your life that you're never going to be nothing. You're nobody. God doesn't love you. You shouldn't trust anything. That is fear of worldly things. And that is fear because then you can't see the goodness and the love of God. It will always cause you to take your eyes off Jesus and put them onto your circumstances. Always. Always, always. Another thing that I think is so lovely about the Almighty Satan is that he will try to sidetrack you with worldly things. Like I said earlier on, he will try to sidetrack you with the big promotion that really isn't God's will, but it's his way to get what he wants from you and out of you. We as a people can be so easily distracted, by all the new and shiny and exciting things this world has to offer. The newest car, or the latest whip, as the kids call it. shoes, clothes, makeup, money, fame, quote unquote fortune, being seen, all of those things. Therefore what he'll do is that he will make sure you try to get to it. He's going to try to make sure that you always chasing that almighty dollar. Now, let's understand something. God doesn't want us to be broke. He doesn't want us to be poor. But we're not supposed to chase money. And most people say, money is the root of all evil. No, it's not. It's for the love of it. It's for the love of money is the root of all evil. Money is not the root of all evil. The love of it is. The love of it is. So let me help you understand one thing. Satan can never take away your salvation. Never. Now God is greater, and he is never going to lose no one that belongs to him. Now I said, there's a caveat there, because his intention is never to lose any one of us. The only way he can lose us is unless we decide to willingly and knowingly walk away. Unless we decide to rescind what God has given us and ordained. Unless we decided to go over to the dark side and the other side and say, you know what, we like this a little bit better and this is what we're going to do. That's the only way he can lose us. But if we are still fighting the fight and we're still persevering and we're still pushing because we want the best and we know that we deserve more than what, the little enemy tries to put at us, God is going to push through and persevere to make sure that we are good. Yes, he is. He is not looking to lose us at all. But the thing is, Satan can do a lot of damage and cripple us in our quest for intimacy with God and personal holiness. So we must be alert, because Satan will attack when we're not ready. I will say that again. He always attacks when we're not ready. He's not just being like, okay, she's just busy. She's reading up on her word. She's all prayed up. Let's go after them now. Oh, no. You won't be where you think everything is good. You riding your high horse. You slipped up a few times and decided that you don't always need God. You don't need to pray. You don't need to read your word. You don't need to cover yourself. It's going to be that slip-up moment that he sees an opportunity to slip in. That is how Satan works. It's never going to be when we think we are armored up. It's always going to be when we're not ready. We understand we must know his tactics. And we must stand firm against the attacks and the deceits that he has. God has not left us defenseless. He has given us armor, and we must know to wear it at all times. Because, I get it. Sometimes we forget. Sometimes we just be like, you know what? I don't know what's going on today. I'm gonna be good. Like, I gotta rush. I had to get up late, and, I can't read the word today. I can't, take on that today. So I'll come back to it at a later time, at another time. That is going to be the day where he decides he wants to have full-fledged fun with you. That time when you ignore the time you were supposed to spend with God. The time that you ignore when you needed to do something to create that environment that God needed you to create. That's when he's going to have full-fledged, full honey bunch fun with you. I'll be like, oh, This is what we're doing now? This is how we're doing now. Okay. We gonna work this out just a tad bit longer. This is how we're gonna do it. So just let me let you know. You'll always have problems. That's life. Don't let your problems, prevent you from moving forward towards your destiny. Always love and be kind to people, but sometimes we must detach and distance ourselves from people who the enemy is using as a distraction. Every good opportunity is not from God. So I'm going to say that again. Every good opportunity is not from God. The enemy would love for you to pursue things that move you in a direction away from God's divine purpose. And that's his thing. I am going to make your life miserable. I am going to have a field day with your emotions. I am going to mess with your money. I'm going to mess with your time. I'm going to mess with your children. I'm going to mess with your job. And for those that are in tight jobs right now, who are struggling, who feel like, this is just going a little bit longer than I needed to go. I need this to work out. I need some things to happen. The enemy sometimes is using situations to make you walk into this miracle promotion that is nowhere near close to what God needs you to be. Sometimes we're in these situations because God is preparing us for something greater. But the thing is, we're in a waiting pattern because we have to something has to be burnt off. Something has to be peeled off. And so we're not doing something. We're not moving in a way in which we're supposed to be moving. Something isn't right. Something isn't going on. So don't just grab the next best thing or the newest shiny object or what you think is going on. Seek God, because he's never going to lead you astray. He's never going to put you in a situation that's going to make you back up from him. You have a rendezvous with destiny. God has an incredible purpose for your life. Don't let anything or anyone distract you from fulfilling that heavenly calling. I'm going to say that again. Just remember that you have a rendezvous with destiny. God has such an amazing purpose for your life. Don't let what the enemy has going on get you to move away from what God has for you. Not saying, understand he's going to try. Understand it is his goal, his life mission to try to distract you, to manipulate you, to tempt you, to lie to you. That is his ultimate goal. But you can't fall prey to that. You have to read your word. You have to stay before him. You have to know when God is talking to you. And not because you want to do something, not because it feels good, not because it's lovely. Your growth is going to hurt a little, but it's fine. Pay attention. Keep your eyes open and understand distraction is not one-dimensional. It's multifaceted, and it is coming from you at all sides. It's time to take your blinders off. It's time to see what we see. It's time to know what you have to do. So pick up your word, get on your knees, and fight him the way God has taught you to fight him. He is beneath your feet, and you are to step on him. He has no dominion. He has no power. Only God has it. And God is living within you, not Satan. I want to thank you so much for listening this evening to the Moving Past Your Radio Show. Be sure to visit us on our Facebook page. Go ahead and just search us. You can join conversations, access some show notes and bonus content, and some just, fantastic little tips along the way. You can also find us on iTunes and Spotify. Just search Moving Past You. You can also search for us on Praise Orlando if you're on Facebook. Look for Praise Orlando Radio Network and Praise Orlando Gloria Media. Like, follow. There's so many other contents on there. But I will talk to you all next week, same time. Know that I love you. Be blessed, and you have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Love you all.